Now, back to school blues hits Germany weeks after Ghana had its own share of internal criticism when the government decided to partially open up our schools. In our crossover to Germany, we focus on reopening of their schools despite long-held fears of a second wave of the pandemic and the return of many vacationers, which only seems to worsen those fears. Correspondent William Glucroft is with our DW partners and he joins us with more. William, here in Ghana, we closed down all schools and partially reopened for final year students to finish up. But Germany's schools were on vacation. Is this a partial or a full reopening?
It's right, as you say, Germany got lucky in a way when the pandemic really hit the country. It was right around Easter break just then, so schools more or less took an extended break, then came back for a little bit or were closed a little bit longer and then went right into summer. So as much as that situation was extremely difficult here in Germany, it was worse in many other places like where you are, and it could have been much worse here in Germany. And now schools in Germany are facing that very challenge, going back to school in a normal way amid a very abnormal situation. It should be noted that Germany is a federal system. There's 16 states here, and education policy, and to an extent health policy as well, are determined at the local and state level. So the rules are going to be very different depending where in Germany you are. You're also not everyone going back to school at the same time. Germany has a staggered school system, meaning that some states will go back to school earlier than others. We had one state in northern Germany go back this week. Berlin will go back next week. And between now and the middle of September, the remaining states will slowly go back to school, which is in a way good news because it allows schools and school systems and states where the schools are not back in session to watch very carefully, and I'm sure they are, the way things are going in parts of Germany where schools are in session, and then they can adjust their rules accordingly. But how these rules are really going to play out, that's what has many people worried.
And that's where I am curious as well, William. What do authorities say is the strategy?
The strategy is similar to what we see in other parts of public life. For example, here at the office, where we're allowed to sit at our desks without masks, but if we're walking around the office, we have to have masks on. The same will be in schools. Students and teachers moving about their day, they have to have masks. But in some states, not all again, because as I say, it's different from state to state, but in some states, they don't have to wear masks at their desks. There's also going to be all of the hygiene rules, the disinfection, the hand washing that we've all had to experience. There's going to be a lot of that going on. There's going to be making sure that there's distance between students and teachers, and there's going to be regular and free testing available to everyone, regardless of symptoms. And one final thing, students, we're told, are going to be divided into what's called cohorts. These are going to be small groups of students who will stay with each other the entire time and not mix with other cohorts. The idea here is that you can keep infections low, and if there are infections, it can be contained within these cohorts. So the cohorts, these groups, can be quarantined without affecting the rest of the school.
Interesting. Now, there were already fears of a second wave, and that is worsened by the return of vacationers. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the most recent press conference from the Robert Koch Institute, that's the public health institute here in Germany, that's the #1 place to go to for all coronavirus information. They say that although there is some risk from vacationers returning from elsewhere, from outside of Germany, that is not the main risk. That is not the main source of the increase in infections that we're seeing in Germany. And there has been an increase in infections. That's mostly coming from large group gatherings all around Germany, whether it's a church gathering, whether it's some kind of party or a social gathering. That's where the Robert Koch Institute is seeing the majority of cases spike. And of course, as we've discussed between us the last several weeks, the working conditions on farms and in meat processing facilities, these are the kinds of places. But absolutely, as vacationers come back from outside, from other places around Europe, from Turkey, from Asia, wherever they may be coming back from, there's definitely the big question of what are they bringing back with them. And that is why the German government right now is trying to find a legal way to require tests when returning to airports, to train stations, and across land borders with their cars.
Interesting, William. Now, again, here in Ghana, the government was heavily criticized, even for the partial reopening. What's the general reaction to all these developments in Germany?
It's mixed. Parents are, of course, thrilled to have their kids back in schools. Remember, back in the spring, it was very difficult for families who were working to find a way to take care of their kids who were home. It was very difficult to find ways to keep the education going, to keep their learning going. Also for the schools, teachers want to have students back. Everybody wants to go back to normal. The question is how and how to do it safely. You have the head of the Social Democrats, that's one of the parties in power here in Germany, criticizing the plan, calling it an illusion to think that this is even possible, that all of these ideas and plans can really happen. In practice, you have the teachers union that represents the teachers are being very critical about how to do this safely, especially since many of their teachers are in risk groups themselves. But the bottom line is school has to happen in some way. That's something that the UN has said. The UN has said that this pandemic has been a catastrophe for students, for young people trying to learn all around the world, where you are in Ghana, here in Germany, affecting especially people of lower income, people who struggle the most. Let's not forget, school is not just a place to learn, it's a place to make friends, it's a place to learn how to live in the world, and for especially many poorer students, it's where they get their meals every day. So there's a lot of very important reasons that students need to go back to school. It's just how to do it safely and ensure that it doesn't affect the growing infection rate here in Germany.
Interesting updates there. Thank you very much, William, and stay safe yourself.
You too. Thank you.
That was William Glucroft. He's our correspondent with our partners DW for our weekly crossover.